And then the Mongolian Stomper, how old was he in the ring?
That's a
Holy
great
smokes.
question. Let's take a
Yeah.
look at that.
He had to be like ancient because he looks ancient.
He was born in 36, cuz.
Jesus. Wow. So he was in his 60s here. Oh, almost 60. Wow, he was 58 here, if my quick calculations are correct.
Technically 57. He would turn 58 later in the year, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're real close.
Yeah.
And by the way, looking at him, he looks older than 57.
He sure does.
I'm not saying this to be ugly.
Hmm.
He does not look like he's Jeff Jarrett's age.
No.
Like Jeff Jarrett looks better now than he did in 1995. We just watched that old show from last week, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Why do you think that is? That people just looked older in the 80s and 90s than they do now?
Because of all the things that are available to you to look younger now.
I mean, you don't think these guys are running around getting Botox and shit, do
No,
you?
no, no. I'm talking about workouts.
Oh,
I'm
I
t-
see.
I'm talking about supplements. I'm talking about there's just been so much that that they can do to you for you medically now to help your longevity.
Do you think that there's less alcohol consumed now in the business than there used to be?
Yeah, there's no doubt.
I think that's got to be part of it. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't I don't think we spend enough time talking about that, but I do
Yeah.
think that back in the day, it was sort of expected and understood. As soon as the matches were over, hey, we got the beer on ice.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to do that until we go to sleep, whether that means we're in a bar in a restaurant or we're in a car or we're just back in our hotel room. I just don't think that exists these days. Now I think it's more, hey, we're going to go hit the vape pen and play some PlayStation.
Yeah, that's true. But also, there's another thing too, and that is the time you spend on the road.
It's way different. Yeah.
What way different? Listen, these guys back in the day, and of course, the day basically is not here in '94 is not what it was in the '80s, '70s, or '60s. Those guys went from town to town, worked every night, and didn't get much sleep. Still got up and tried to work out, and most of them did. Many of them did, and that took a toll on the body. It really did. And so that's why they aged a lot more than they do today. So yeah, it's changed a great deal. I mean, you you know, you've heard people talk about in major league locker rooms or in football locker rooms. A lot of the guys are on their phones right now, instead of talking to each other on their phones.
Right.
I don't find that in wrestling. I go into a locker room and I see guys talking to each other a lot. And I thought about that the other day. I'm thinking, I know everybody's got a phone. And I know if you go into the airport and everybody's waiting for an airplane, everybody's on their phone, looking at their phone, playing a game, reading, email, whatever. But in a wrestling locker room, there's a lot of conversation going on, which I always thought that was pretty good. And I'm making my point to go into the men's locker room every show to say hello to the guys. Uh, and I mean, there's some on the phone, but it's not that they're all staring at their phones, looking down and not looking at each other. They all are talking, which I thought is very cool. Anyway, that's what's going on in today's locker room compared to, like you said, in the locker room back then, where the beer's on ice, got to hit the road. Guys would work and they were gone.
Yeah.
A lot of guys work today or girls work today and they'll stay for the entire show because they want to watch what's going on. And I think, to be very honest with you, and it's because of television, probably, today's wrestler is more of a fan than they were back then.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you couldn't see as much wrestling back then as you can today. There wasn't streaming. Basically, you could see if you were in Knoxville, you could probably see uh, Turner, WWE, and something local, and that was it. But now you've got pay-per-views, you got streaming, you got YouTube. So you can be more of a fan today than you were back then of wrestling. Not to say they weren't wrestling fans, the wrestlers back then.
You can consume more now.
Exactly.
We've got 5,000 folks here in the building. 4,400 of those are paid. This went down August 5th, 1994. And the actual show would feature an in-ring promo with New Jack, Mustafa, along with D'Lo Brown. This is the era where New Jack is doing all the controversial stuff, giving shout outs to OJ Simpson and things like that in 1994. And this is around the same time where they started putting disclaimers at the bottom of the television whenever he would cut those promos. This is actually the third match on the evening. Chris Walker would pin Richard Slinger. What's your favorite Chris Walker's match?
I remember that match that he had in Knoxville back in 1994 against Richard Slinger. That was a pretty good one.
Chris Walker, if you've never taken a look at him, he used to use the name Conan. Go out of your way to just Google image Chris Walker. That dude looked like a star. Just didn't work out maybe the way people thought. Next up would be Doug Furnas, who a lot of us saw with Furnas and LaFawn in the WWF, and they certainly had a lot of success over in Japan. And he would beat Killer Kyle with a modified Frankensteiner. And this was match 3. As you see, it's breaking down here. They're going to go to a double DQ in 11 minutes and 50 seconds. We got about 7 minutes of that on the playback here. A lot of legends in this one, man.
I was so disappointed, to be honest with you, that this was on Peacock, because I really wanted to listen to JR and be able to track some of the audio, you know?
Yeah,
But
WWE doesn't allow us. They don't want anyone to know about Peacock. You know, once upon a time when they were in the business of selling subscriptions, they encouraged, I mean, hell, that's the reason Bruce got hired on there. I mean, they would see the big spikes on the back end and think, man, this guy's got influence. And so as that deal changed, and now they're just getting a flat fee from Peacock, well, they don't give a shit.
right.
So they're not interested in us telling people to go sign up anymore.
Yeah.
But here's that segment we were talking about with New Jack and Jim Ross. So Jim Ross is in the middle of the ring here, looking as only he can look. How would you describe that tie that he's sporting?
That is a very fashionable tie made up of amoebas and barbecue stains.
There you go. It's a Men's Warehouse exclusive. He's going to introduce the Gangstas, Mustafa Saeed and New Jack. They're going to be talking about their controversial comments from Smoky Mountain Television. And their entrance theme is Public Enemy's Can't Trust It. Of course, you can't hear that if you're listening on the network. That's one of the things I hate most. And I know that it shouldn't have ever happened in the beginning, but the old Jim Crockett Promotions and ECW and even Smoky Mountain, man, they could get away with playing traditional music because it was under the radar.
Right.
So they weren't getting a lot of legal flack at the time. But obviously the WWE being a multi-billion-dollar corporation, man, how much does it stand out when you see a Confederate flag in person?
Oh my God.
Like that, just like, I know I grew up in the South. So, you know, when I was a kid and even back in 94, it was pretty common to see those around. But now through 2024 eyes, it's like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, I know.